Fearscape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hi, listeners. Listen to the Books and Booze podcast with me, host Anna Timberly, and Marlena Lear as we crack open a bottle or two, or three, and dive into some interesting books. Airing the first Wednesday of every month. Bye.
There are phenomena that exist all around us. Kids playing above something unknown flies over and disappears. People driving at night, seeing huge creatures cross the road. People waking up to find their cabinet doors ripped open in their kitchen. Strange things happen every day around the world and seemingly at the same time and area. But are these occurrences connected? This is what we are here to explore and are trying to understand. Join us on our journey to uncover what we call the Convergence Enigma. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Convergence Enigma with Josh and Stefan here on the UnX Network, as well as the Fearscape Media Network. I am your host, Stefan Gearhart, and I am joined, as always, by the balding Sasquatch mother figure of them all, Josh Rutledge. And by balding, I just mean you're shaved, completely hairless. You're a hairless Sasquatch.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. I mean, I'm not nearly as tall as a Sasquatch, so like I'm balding and shorter. I'm really like an outcast of the Sasquatch community.
Yeah. I would say I'm kind of a sassy Squatch. Like if I had to be anything, I'm a sassy Squatch. But anyways, thank you, Josh, for joining me as you normally do. Great news, everybody! Santosh is back. We got Santosh back on the show with us because tonight we are going to be talking about the most famous alien abduction case in the history books, the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case and UFO sighting. I'm super pumped to be talking and discussing about this. We've been talking about it a long time, Josh. We have talked about it on so many shows. In fact, we had Betty's niece on the show, Kathleen Martin. Yeah. So we are pumped to be talking about this, especially with our dude Santosh here for Alien Abduction April.
That's the wrong sound.
No, I like your sound better than mine. But yeah, Alien Abduction April, all month long. We're going to have stories of alien abductions. And this is the first one on the list. And that's why we had to have Santosh here. How you doing tonight, Santosh?
I am living it life to the fullest right now. Happy to be here.
Just like your lips, sir. Your lips are at their fullest as well.
I was waiting for your lip jokes. I thought that he was going to be Sasquatch
for me.
You can be a sassy Squatch with me as well.
I am a sassy Squatch.
You are a sassy Squatch. So speaking of being sassy, you shut your dirty smut mouth and let's move on to our first segment of the week, which is Psychic Word of the Week.
And now, the Psychic Word of the Week.
All right, Psychic Word of the Week. And just kidding, you do not have a smut mouth. You have a very beautiful mouth. Psychic Word of the Week, as usual, comes from the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary, written by June G. Blitzer, PhD. Rest in peace, honey bear. Love you. Rest in peace. So as you guys know, what we do, we flip through this incredible encyclopedic dictionary. This time I landed on page 636. And the word that I landed on, where did it go? I was just looking at it. I blame you, Josh.
Always my fault.
It is. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Sorry. I usually mark it, but anyways, tuba tree is the phrase that I landed on. But it's Tooba, and this actually comes from the Quran. So it says tuba trees are enormous trees covered with many kinds of fruit, living in paradise or seventh heaven, not the WB show, in the etheric world. Sits among rivers and springs that flow with water, milk, honey, and wine. Is a tuba tree.
Interesting.
Could you imagine how slow a river of honey would flow? I feel like a river of honey would flow way slower than a river of lava.
I don't know. I mean, if you get a lot of honey flowing, it maybe flows faster together.
Listen, what you do in your love life, Josh, to get that honey flowing is your thing. But no, I don't know.
Does hot honey flow faster?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it would have to, because
why
cold
the
honey
harvesters are heated when they pull off the caps and stuff.
Right, because you have to, because honey can settle and get
crystallized.
So
crystallized, you
know,
all you gotta do is microwave it.
The scientist in me says that honey in motion would create friction, thus creating heat. Therefore, it would heat the honey up, causing it to flow faster.
I guess it depends on how steep the decline is,
or the physics of the other world we're inhabiting and looking at this tuba tree, which I had imagined was a band thing.
Right. All tubas, wooden versions, come from the tuba tree in the Quran, where you can also eat bananas and grapes on the same tree.
I thought you just meant they grew on the tree, like you just walk up and pluck off a tuba. Yeah.
Tuba Steve.
It's not a tuba.
Yep. Anyways, moving on. We are going to go on to our next segment. And boy, Santosh, do we have somebody that's excited to see you. So let's go ahead and move on to Cryptid of the Week. Oh, yeah.
Hi, y'all. It's the Jersey Devil. Hope y'all are ready to meet some of my friends.
Cryptid of the Week.
Hey, Santosh, what's happening, brother?
Hey, handsome, how you doing? How you
I'm
been?
doing so good. I just want to say thank you so much for sending all the love that you have to my mother and creating that Facebook group that says mothers are people too.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. And Josh? Mm-hmm. I'm only mad at you because I'm trying to impress Santosh.
Oh.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Yeah. I do love you. But yeah, Josh, I just want to say that I'm super excited that you're moving to Phoenix, but I will say that you're in Phoenix more than Stefan is, and he lives there.
Well, that's not necessarily true. My heart's there, though. My heart goes out to you.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, I will hand the reins back over to Stefan. But for this week, Santosh, I'll be here if you want to chit chat. But we're going to be talking about a really good friend of mine. His name is Burbalang.
Nice.
And not Burbalang a ding dang.
I might have another portrait for you sometime too.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Oh my goodness. And
always showing that best side.
Yep, always. And my mother is beautiful. Thank you for always reminding me, Santosh. I'm just going to step over to the side here real quick. Stefan, if you want to take over. Yeah, I got it. It's fine.
So this week on Cryptid of the Week, we are talking about one of JD's friends here, the Burbalang. Thank you, Jersey Devil, for introducing me. I had never heard of the Burbalang until he showed me some pictures from his last cryptid gathering. So the Burbalangs are mythical creatures in Filipino culture. They are human in appearance, but resemble the characters of vampires and have wings and slanted eyes. They dig up graves to feast on the corpses, so kind of like ghouls in a way. And there's an account here of an encounter with Burbalangs. Oh boy, it keeps making me think of the Burbles from Thundercats. The Burbalangs occurs in Rupert T. Gold's book Oddities, published in 1928. Now, Gold is the fairy guy, right? Isn't that right? He did the pressed fairy book, or am I making that up? Or was he one of the main people that like took those pictures of fairies in the early 20s and 30s? Wasn't that Robert Gold?
I honestly don't know.
Somebody look that up while I'm reading this.
Okay.
Anyways, it says in the 1896, and Gould is Gould. In the 1896 Journal of the Asiatic Society of Bengal, Mr. Ethelbert Forbes Sketcherly of Hong Kong reported the remarkable story of the Burbalangs of Cagayan, Sulu. says, at the center of the island is a small village, the inhabitants of which owe allegiance to neither of the two chiefs. These people are called Burbalangs, and the Kaigayans live in great fear of them. These Burbalangs are kind of ghouls and feed on human flesh occasionally to survive. You can always identify them because their pupils are not round, but just narrow slits like those of a cat. They dig open the graves and eat the entrails of the corpses, but in Kaigayan, the supply is limited. So when they feel the craving for a feed of human flesh, they go away into the grasslands and, having carefully hidden themselves, hold their breaths and fall into a trance. Their astral bodies are then liberated. They fly away and, entering a house, make their way into the body of one of the occupants and feed on their entrails. The arrival of the Burbalangs may be heard from afar as they make a moaning noise, which is loud from a distance but dies away into the feeble moan as they approach. When they are near you, the sound of their wings may be heard, and the flashing lights of their eyes can be seen like dancing fireflies in the dark. Should you be the happy possessor of a coconut pearl, you are safe. But otherwise, the only way to beat them off is to jab at them with a kris, the blade of which has been rubbed with the juice of a lime. If you see the lights and hear the moaning in front of you, wheel fast and make a cut in the opposite direction. Burbalangs always go by contraries and are never where they appear to be.
And yeah, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you've ever heard a Burbalang moan, but I once dated one. And whoa, boy, let me tell you, she moaned out a real horse whisper, boy. Let me tell you, it was like...
There's also a way to test for Burbalangs around. Can I get a oh yeah?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Santosh, man. Like they sound like they've been smoking for 30 years and laughed at something. That's what that moan sounds like. And then a oh yeah. And yeah, he's right. I once got possessed by a Burbalang. And I'll tell you what, only reason I survived is because I happened to fall into someone's glass of tequila. It happened to have a lime in there, and it happened to have a piece of ice that was so sharp that it cut me, and it shot that Burbalang straight out of my bosom. Or I would be here right now trying to eat on Josh's entrails.
Burbalang also sounds like some sort of a, I don't know, a Cajun dish.
It can be if stewed correctly. I don't know if you know the difference between
do
stew
they-
and a soup.
Do they feast on I thought it was the entrails of the dead.
Well, it can be, but sometimes they said that, if you read the article like I was talking about, my friend that's a Burbalang who cut his teeth out, he's not a bad guy anymore. That's why he's allowed at the meetings. But he said that sometimes, in Cagayan, it was tough to find dead bodies that hadn't already been violated by the Burbalangs. And so they just had to do what they had to do. And so they would get inside someone and possess them and then eat the family. So they would kill them and then eat them. So it's a lot of work. There's a lot of work. What you had to do, because you had to wait like 3 days to get that corpse taste in there.
Well, and it's messy the other way It's messy the other way around.
God bless
eating
you.
them while they're still alive.
Yes, it is. And I don't know if you know about people moans, but people moans are gross. And if it's someone who's been smoking a lot, it also sounds like.
Sounds like 30 years of mortgage.
Get away from the microphone.
It kind of reminds me of that movie. What's
The
that?
Burbalang?
The thing that people hang above their beds to keep the bad dreams out. What's
Dream
that?
catcher.
There you go. The movie is called The Name. Dream Catcher.
You talk about the
Johnny
one with
Depp
eye
one?
duddits?
Yes, and
Stephen
that
King?
one, and that like part of the alien thing, like it gets like you eat flesh that was infected or chewed on by the alien thing, and then it grows inside your body and it comes out your poop hole, and then it eats you, and then it grows and tries to get into the water source and all that kind of jazz. So
Yeah, yes. And fun fact before y'all get into your topic about Benny and Barty Rubble, is that Dreamcatcher, the alien, in the Stephen King books, is the same species as Pennywise from It. You're welcome.
I knew that. I would have said that, but yeah, that's absolutely right. They are the exact same alien species. They are.
Thanks, JD.
Anyways,
I don't know why they don't let you on more.
Also, I could find nothing on Robert Gould having to do with fairies or fae.
Lady Cuddleton's pressed fairy book by Brian Froud and his wife. Gould did come in on the teams later for like the Sacred Heart or something like that.
See, I knew
so that's
there
why
was
you're
something
saying
with
pressed
Gould.
fairy. I was like, that's a Froud thing.
Yep.
So he was
Also,
on that team later.
Robert Gould Shaw was a Union officer, made famous in the movie Glory.
Cool. Thanks for that random knowledge we didn't need. So let's go ahead, Josh, and let's move into our topic tonight, which is the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill. Boom. What do we got, Josh?
Yeah, so it was an abduction.
And thank you. Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Good night, everybody. No, yeah, so yeah, so we've got the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill. It happened in 1961. There's a couple of things that I think is important to note here about this particular abduction case. I mean, if you're listening and you're not familiar with it, there are a number of books. We'll talk a little bit about it, some of them later on in the episode. Some written by Kathleen, as we spoke about early on, some written at the time that it was happening. But it's just kind of some tidbits about the abduction that I think is good to lead off with. First of all, it was the first alien abduction claim in the United States.
Right. So nothing else. What was? Sorry to throw you up, but was there something else worldwide before this that you're aware of? Because I've always heard that too, that it was first in the United States, and I'm like, oh, but what? Oh, maybe it's that Brazilian case. I don't know. Sorry, I'm talking out my butt.
No, I mean, but yeah, I mean, the fact that it makes the distinction in the United States does imply that there was a case before. I just don't know what that case was. So, thanks for pointing out my ill preparedness for the episode 13.
You're welcome.
That was also the first reported case of missing time.
Ooh, that's interesting.
The first use of hypnotic regression to recover abduction memories. The first public description of what we know as the Greys. The first time a couple had claimed a simultaneous abduction.
Okay, so you said that's the first use of hypnotizing with the Greys, not just...
No, hypnotic regression for memory
No,
retrieval.
the first use of hypnotic regression to recover abduction memories.
Oh, what was the part about the Greys?
The first public description of what we know as the Greys.
Oh, publicly. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. That I was not aware of that.
And it's very interesting here that if you recall, in the book, if you read Kathleen Martin's book, or if you've done any research, and if not, I'm going to talk about it here, is that they actually talk about when Betty talks about her abduction by the individuals, she doesn't refer to them as the Greys. So interesting that that's called out here as a highlight. But so yeah, we've got, so let me talk a little bit about Betty and Barney and who they were in their situation that they were in. So number one, Barney was black, Betty was white. So automatically in the 1960s, you've got an interracial couple. Even in New Hampshire, they were singled out. They would be stopped by police for no reason at all, and they were actively involved in the civil rights movement.
I mean, I hate to say it still happens, but yeah, even in the North.
They volunteered with the NAACP, and they were basically living with the full-time stress of being an interracial couple in this period of time in the United States.
Which skeptics will bring this up as saying that's why this was all blah blah blah, was to bring light onto interracial couples. But to me, I'm like, it's the exact opposite. Oh, you do not want to bring light onto that as an excuse for people to say why you shouldn't. I don't know.
Also, I want to make sure we're using the right terminology moving forward. debunkers is what you mean.
Oh yeah, we are moving away from skeptics. Alan Greenfield definitely said that skeptics, we are all skeptics as well. Skeptics, we are just constantly just trying to understand things, and we remain skeptical on things when there needs to be room for skepticism. But the skeptics that are out there that call themselves skeptics and have skeptic society, they are just simply debunkers. Their whole purpose is to just say what you believed, what you saw was fake.
Yep. I'm just going to say no matter what it is. The answer is no.
Yep.
So, but they were trying to live normal lives. Betty was a social worker, taking on child welfare cases for the state of New Hampshire. And Barney worked for the post office, and he actually commuted every day to Boston and back for his graveyard shift at the post office.
Jeez. I wonder how far that was.
It actually said here that before the events of September 1961, they actually got a lot of comic grief from their friends for something that the Jersey Devil slipped up and said a few minutes ago, that they were Betty and Barney Rubble from the Flintstones.
Hey, I sees it like I says it.
It said, the Hill case was so sensational that many Americans fell in love with it, and it was also very disruptive in a time when most people wouldn't talk about UFOs, let alone the idea that someone could be taken by a UFO, and then even further still that there might be beings inhabiting or working within that UFO.
And we're going to be talking about this in a week or two, where we're going to be talking about the contactee movement of the 1950s, that was more about the Space Brotherhood and how kind and wonderful these Nordic alien men from Venus and how wonderful they were. Betty and Barney Hill's story was frightening. It was scary, and that was something that separated. And they didn't try to start a cult like all the rest of those guys did.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely something different. So it's it's definitely interesting.
So the Hills had planned to stay in Montreal the night of September 19th, and what they were just, I think, on a little bit of a vacation, a honeymoon type trip. And Barney was a little discomfort, whatever the correct. I don't know. Words are hard today. About the possibility of getting a room as an interracial couple. He already felt like an outsider, and living in the mostly white Portsmouth part of. But the people in Montreal spoke French, so he felt a little unease. So instead of staying in a hotel room, they decided to pull a long late night into the early morning drive and just go ahead and head back home. That would have been about 7 hours of like back road drive through the mountains and darkness and all of that kind of stuff before the sun would come up.
Yeah.
And they would have some light. They stopped for food at a diner. I'm sure they got a lot of stares when they did so. Barney got a cheeseburger despite his high blood pressure, and Betty got the chocolate cake. You know what? I bet you because Barney got a cheeseburger, that's why he had the experience.
Right. And she got chocolate cake, so she was like tripped out on sugar.
They left just a few minutes after 10 p.m. So things got strange from here. And I'm just going to hit some of the highlights here. So they saw something in the sky that they thought might be a satellite or a plane, but it followed them. They tried to get away from it, but eventually it forced them to stop in the middle of the road, and they could see that it was an actual wingless object. With binoculars, Barney even saw beings looking back at him through the windows.
And now this is interesting because Barney was in the military, so he was pretty well associated with what aircraft should look like.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the fact that he's scared of this is a big deal, in my opinion.
Yep. It says here they heard a buzzing sound, which is a pretty common report from a lot of different abduction cases. It's
Yes.
like a like kind of buzzing sound, or sometimes it's described as almost like a steam engine type sound. Like,
And we'll be talking about that when we get into the Pascagoula abduction as well.
Yep. The next thing they knew, it was 2 hours later. They were 30 miles further down the road and not sure how they got there.
And Santosh, you'll know there were no Walmarts back then, so it couldn't have been the Walmart time wizards getting you.
Watch out for them. Don't invoke them.
So this had to be something else.
I think you invoke them by walking into Walmart and saying funnel cake, funnel cake, funnel cake.
No, I think you just invoke them
No,
by
you
walking
just
into
go in.
Walmart going, I'm just going to grab
That's
something
their
here real
domain.
quick.
I'm just going to grab I'll be right out. Yeah.
I'll be right out.
Time folds and you multiply it by 2 and add a half.
Yep.
So once they got back into Portsmouth, they realized that Betty's new dress was torn. Her earrings were missing. Barney's new shoes were scuffed badly, and they felt clammy and violated.
The shoes?
Yes.
No. The shoes felt clampy.
Yeah, clampy.
Clampy.
Barney took a compass that he had and placed it on the trunk of their car, and where he saw a collection of like $50 sized round spots that weren't there when they left, and that compass just spun and spun and spun and went wild. So
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they also wasn't like the back of the car hot or something along those lines?
It was.
There was like a
Yep.
big
Like a
temperature difference.
big difference. Yeah, big temperature difference.
Where the
and a part
engine's
of
in the front of the car.
Right.
So.
in a part of a car where you wouldn't expect that to be the case, right?
Yep.
So the car clock and their watches had stopped.
Which is another classic. See, the problem with calling things classic, a lot of them stem from this account.
Yeah, it's the template.
Yes, the Betty and Barney Hill case is the template
Yep.
here.
I mean, I'm
Set the bar.
pretty sure that, MUFON's contactee form, a lot of the questions that they asked really does stem from a lot of this stuff that was experienced as part of this
Well, I
case.
mean,
So,
Kathleen Martin is, the queen of MUFON, so I hope that doesn't
Right.
surprise me for her to be like, all right, let's put these down and these down, guys. This is what
Yeah.
happens.
yeah. So they did report the case to Pease Air Force Base and to the National Investigations Committee for Aerial Phenomena. So,
and I wonder that quite a
NICAP,
bit.
for sure,
That's
right?
what they used to do back then. That was the thing. If you had a UFO sighting, you reported it to the closest military base or police. And, then it went through this phase where you just simply reported it to the news. And now it's nothing or MUFON, It's like, but I wonder if military bases are still getting calls. Like, I wonder if that's still a thing. Because they don't
Well,
report that stuff anymore. So,
Well, we know that for some of the cases that we've looked at, once they closed Project Blue Book, any call to the military base, you were redirected to your local sheriff's department.
oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Well, that was just Air Force, though.
No, that was all military base.
It was all military. What about Space Force?
It didn't exist.
I'm talking about right now, Josh. What about Space Force? Call up.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, so that's again post the closing of Project Blue Book. Now that the Pentagon has announced that they've got the UAP task force, I wonder if there is a more official reporting mechanism. Although I think the UAP task force is really only focused on military reported events.
Well, I say that the next time any of us, and this includes you, Santosh, anytime any of us has a pretty good UFO UAP sighting, we live stream us calling Space Force and submitting it just to see what happens. Because I don't want to make something up. I want us to actually have something that we're reporting so that we're not, spoofing or hoaxing or anything like that. I don't want to be a Gray Barker here, but we should totally live stream us calling Space Force to see what Space Force does.
I mean, you have to find the phone number for Space Force.
It's not that hard, Josh. All you gotta do is learn to research.
He's on one tonight, man.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
There's a thing called Googly. Check it out.
So they did speak to a few kind of close friends and family. Everyone saw really how shaken up they were. Betty began to have frightening nightmares about being taken aboard the saucer that they saw, and weird dreams about blue people in uniforms.
There you go. Smurfs.
Yep. They weren't short, I don't think. Maybe they were. 2 years later, they submitted to hypnotic regression. So they went all that time just kind of talking to people, being investigated. They finally, though, said, okay, we'll do hypnotic regression. That was conducted by Dr. Benjamin Simon.
Now, hold on. I want to go back, because also correct me if I'm wrong, that Barney had rashes that were breaking out like right after as well. And he couldn't explain them. He didn't know where they were coming from. But really severe, almost like eczema or something along those lines, even worse than that just came out of nowhere within like a week. Within that week of the sighting at that point.
That's true. And also at the same time, we mentioned the tear in Betty's dress. She actually noticed a powdery substance around where it was torn, and she did collect a sample of that to kind of save away for testing. I mean, Betty really approached it. I would say of the two, Barney wanted to forget about it.
Oh yeah.
Betty couldn't let it go. Not in a bad way. She wanted to solve the puzzle, and I think that's okay. I mean, that's the nature of things in the 60s already. Was, the male was usually kind of, but then you've got an African American who's married to a white woman, and he doesn't want the spotlight on him. He's always been taught, at that time, to just back up, shut up, and blah blah blah, because that was the stupid culture back then. And so he didn't want anything added to that. And so his personality, from everything we've learned, was a very keep to yourself kind of personality. Private. Even when it came to emotional things, he kind of buried that stuff. So well, that's been a topic of discussion locally within our friends. It's like, it's okay for men to cry. So but the hypnotic regression also took place, if I remember correctly, in Kathleen's book. They actually went through several sessions of regression where he would place them under get key details, and then put in place blocks to block their memory of what they had recalled, so that he could better prepare them for the knowing of what had happened. So, I mean, Dr. Benjamin Simon, again, is who I'm talking about here with the he. I mean, he went through a lot of effort to make sure that they were safe. Several sessions with Barney started to get, what's the word I'm looking for? He started really kind of freaking out while underneath hypnotic regression, just crying and sobbing
before.
Which we have mentioned before. This happened to me during mine with Santosh, handling the hypnosis part of it. But it's like going back and reading Barney's account of everything, I'm like, I get it. And his was even crazier. I mean, because he was an adult, right? So he's having adult memories. I was having kid memories.
Right.
And so they were a little like crossed, confusing, but he's frightened because he's an adult, and it's scarier in some ways to be frightened as an adult, because we're taught that we shouldn't be, right?
Yep. And he actually, several times, like I said, they had to shut the hypnosis down because he was getting so agitated in his kind of deep meditative state that he became, they were worried about risk or damage to his psyche. So a lot of, I think, debunkers, I would say, point to Betty's want to understand what happened, and they say that influenced Barney's position on things. I would say that the results from the hypnotic regression indicate that Barney had his own experiences and was just as much traumatized by what had happened as Betty.
Yeah.
So there are quite a few tapes of those hypnotic regressions, about 11 hours. If you buy Kathleen's book, it includes a link for you to go and listen to them. It's pretty cool. And I have checked out a couple of them, and they're really interesting to listen to.
Yeah, and I've heard a couple of them on some podcasts and stuff. And recently, I can't remember, because so Kathleen's got a new book that's out that's just talking about her life and stuff. But they also just recently, I believe on Discovery Plus, just released a new Betty and Barney Hill documentary that's a part of that same series that we saw, the Hudson Valley series. It's the same, it's part of that series. So they dropped two things. I can't remember what the other subject was, but they dropped them both in February, like a week or two ago. But yeah, it's from Kathleen, so it's kind of more along those lines. But yeah, you're going to get to hear a lot of the tapes and things like that on that special on Discovery Plus.
So it didn't take long, but a local paper got a hold of it, the Boston Traveler. And they broke the story kind of on an old-fashioned kind of investigative type journalistic approach that was done by reporter John Luttrell. So later, after Luttrell broke the ice, author John Fuller wrote a book about the Hills as well.
Yeah, the OG book there. That's the one that the TV movie with Darth Vader's voice.
Yeah.
James Earl Jones, where he plays Barney Hill. TV movie. Yep.
Straight to TV.
Yep, straight to TV movie. It's on YouTube. In fact, you can go to Weird Lectures, which is Johnny L. Tenney's YouTube page. It's the best. He has all the best old like documentaries and TV movies that have anything to do with paranormal, man. And that one's on there. I think it is just called Unexpected Journey or something like that.
I mean, some of the experiences though that Betty and Barney recalled for like the tests and things that were run on them while they were on board the ship. You know, Betty talks about how a needle was placed into her belly button as a pregnancy test. You know, Barney talks about kind of having these very invasive scans. Barney had false teeth because when he was in the Army, he was close to a live grenade that went off, and it caused him to have some other wounds as well as lose all of his teeth. So he had false teeth. Apparently, according, this is Betty's account, they were confused as to why Barney's teeth came out. Yeah. Like that they were able to physically remove his teeth in like one big kind of bite section.
Like you get to confuse an alien. Good for you, buddy. Betty saw something that looked like a tablet, what we know as a tablet today.
Right.
Like she describes it. It's crazy how it sounds exactly what a tablet would be almost.
You know, she talks about how she kind of befriended one of the, I guess the leader of the group that was on the craft. And he had given her a book to take, or a tablet to take off the craft. And at the last moment, he said, nope, I'm sorry. Actually, I can't give this to you. She talked about how there was a star map on the wall that kind of showed the origin of the craft and the, like zigzaggy kind of route that they had taken to get there. And that the craft actually originated from Zeta Reticuli.
Which is great. So the thing that I learned about this that is really, really interesting is that she created this before Zeta Reticuli was discovered. And so her star map was created years before. And then once that came out, they were able to place her star map to realize that she was talking about Zeta Reticuli. So it's really, really interesting that, here's this thing that everybody said she was crazy because everybody that was astronomers and things like that were like, there's nothing there. We don't have anything. It's bunk. It's bogus. But there was a woman that did all the mapping. And then once Zeta Reticuli was discovered, it was found that fit her star map almost perfectly.
And one kind of big name in the UFO world that really got involved and became a really good friend of Betty's as well as Kathleen's is Stanton Friedman.
Yep. which is if there is anyone that I would call a true skeptic in the UFO field, it would be Stanton. And to show how much he got involved in this case and was behind it says a lot.
I mean, here's a guy who believes the Betty and Barney Hill case, doesn't believe what's his cat from Area 51S4? What's that cat?
Bob Lazar. Yeah,
Bob Lazar,
the most anti-Bob Lazar dude that ever lived. He took that to his grave, man. Hating Bob Lazar.
Yeah, he did. But it's just he was quite a big name, and he I think he worked with I want to say he wrote a book, or maybe he worked in collaboration with Kathleen on her book.
He did.
But I mean, he was also very involved in the case. I mean, to the day that Betty died, she held on to that this is what happened. Mm-hmm. And she actually passed in 2004, so relatively recently here, of lung cancer. Barney, though, all of this got to him.
Yeah.
And his work with the NAACP, and in working with city and county and state politicians and community leaders and everything. Barney died in 1969 of a brain aneurysm.
Yep. And a lot of people say that it was due to stress. I mean, here's a guy that wants to keep to himself and is constantly being forced to be put into the limelight. Not to say that Betty forced him to do this. She was happy to do it on her own, but he couldn't escape it. And
yeah. So, I mean, just some of the other accounts that thinking back about the night of the craft. So one of the things that Barney talks about is there were like wings that came out from the side of the craft, and one had a blue light and one had a red light. And I don't mean like wings like we think about on an airplane. They were more like like rods that kind of stuck out from the side of the craft and had a blue light and a red light on either one of them, and it was kind of flashing different colors. And it really makes you think if that was some sort of an attempt to hypnotize them while they were on the ground, so that they would be more easily carried onto the ship.
Yeah.
And then
maybe it was just the flash function of their really high-tech cameras.
That absolutely.
Yeah. It's several times Barney talked about, after he did his regression, several times he talks about he was driving along and all of a sudden the car would speed up. He was forced to make a left-hand turn that he would not have made any other time. He felt like the car actually made the turn and with his hands on the wheel. And several times they talked about how the car felt like it was kind of under someone else's control, not his own. He did have a pistol in the trunk. When he got the binoculars out, he took the pistol out, but for some reason he never actually used the pistol. So it's really interesting. I also remember, I'm sorry, this just came to me when I was thinking about it after reading the book. He knew he was going to be taken. And we talked about this when we had Kathleen on the show about a year ago, that we asked if the fact that he knew he was going to be taken implied that he had already been taken before.
Right. Or he was a part of something when he was in the military.
Yeah. One interesting thing that I'll point out here is that MK Ultra, later was discovered to be, that the program that was put together by the government for kind of like some really mind foolery, if you will, dedicated experience with mind control, powerful psychoactive drugs and things. Anyways, the location for the base of operations for MK Ultra is thought of to be Montreal, which is where Betty and Barney had just come from.
Interesting. Yeah, I did know that a lot of MK Ultra stuff started in Canada from an American base there.
So it really makes you wonder if there was anything going on there from an MK Ultra perspective. Not necessarily that they hallucinated it, but that this was just another attempt at how can we mess with people, you know?
Yeah. So I did want to say real quick that the TV movie is called The UFO Incident. That's the name of it. The book was called Uninterrupted Journey. Not Unexplained Journey, like I had said. I did want to put that out there. And of course, like we had talked about, that because of this and Kathleen remembering Betty talking about this and all this stuff, she was one of the founders of MUFON. I mean, we would not have MUFON today had the Betty and Barney Hill case not happened, because really the last big thing was NICAP, and that's been gone for quite some time. So, but I highly recommend the UFO Incident. It's cheesy, but another big anti-person, which was really, really surprising and used this quite a bit to just be a jerk, is one of my heroes, was Carl Sagan. He was so against the Betty and Barney Hill case, like it was, and he used it. It's even talked about in Cosmos, like he talks about it.
It's so weird about Carl Sagan though, because in the early days he was a proponent for
huge proponent,
and then all of a sudden he switches his tune to no, it's all a hoax or whatever. Really, you know, it's something we've talked about before. It really makes me think if somehow he was like read in on something and then decided to take a different route. So
there's a number
super
of
jealous maybe.
Yeah, well, there's a couple. I mean, you and I have said it before. We keep waiting for Lou Elizondo to be like, none of this is real now. Like now that he's getting in deep into the governmental side of things. Yeah. Like, is he going to get read in? Presidents did the same thing. You know, Clinton's big thing. I will tell everybody about the aliens when I find out. And then he was just like, I can't talk about it.
Well, I mean, you look at when the when the UAP report was, we were all waiting on it. Obama was on one of the talk shows, I can't remember which, and he was asked about it, and he said, I can tell you that I know some stuff, but I can't tell you what that stuff is.
Yep.
What was it? There was also, was it Jimmy Carter that had an experience?
Jimmy Carter has a documented experience. He was a big UFO nut until he got into the White House. Then it changed.
Yeah, so it really, I mean, it really does make you wonder what they all found out about that changed their tune, so to speak. You know, is it all stemming from the Brookings report saying that we, the people, are not ready to know the answers? Is it really a threat? You know, is it kind of like that movie Don't Look Up? You know, don't tell anybody until it's too late, or not, you know, whatever. So
I don't know. Just to bring it back to Betty and Barney Hill, I mean, that is scary. And if that's something that's happening to people out there, I mean, look, I can fall into the skeptical camp and say that the stuff that happened after the initial documented encounter was fabricated or a believed fabrication of, even, you know, but we can even go there. I'll give credit there and say, yes, that's a possibility. Whatever. But that first bit, I mean, look how stressed out Barney was, man. Like, I can't buy into the fact that he'd be okay with any of this, like making it up if it was all fake.
And they tested the stuff that was found around the rip in the dress, and there was
the car.
Like, you know, it didn't come back to any known substance. There's the fact that you know, if you recall in Kathleen's book, she talks about how Betty tried to work with NICAP to call, like she felt like she could call the extraterrestrials or whatever, the craft, to her, and so she set up times where they would go out and set up their instrumentation, and she would call them to come and you know, not, you know, she wasn't picking up her rotary phone and calling, but, you know, she would telepathically or whatever call them for them to come and be there. And there was always some reason, right, provided as to why they couldn't be there. But I mean, it was just really interesting. I mean, again, why, given the situation that they were in and the attention and what it meant, why put that all out there as a falsehood? So,
what do you think, Santosh?
A couple of things. I keep wondering what kind of rip, because that says a lot too, right? If it was pulled apart, if it was snagged on something, if it was cut open, if a sample of the dress was taken in a rough way, like my nerdy forensics television show side is caught up on that. But then the other one was, you were talking about it staged, and I wondered if, like the moon landing, there was a refilming because of reasons. And yes, that was fake, but that was just a recreation of what had happened because the true footage had gotten lost. In that same way, like, we're talking about the quintessential abduction case. This sets the template for all the others. And I don't know, does it bother either of you that when one detail in a story comes out officially, then somehow it's included in other stories that follow?
Right. And that happens. Sadly.
They're a little less unique than they were until a pop culture reference happens.
Yep. Yeah. And that's a thing that happens when you get into the era of John Mack and those guys, is that they talk about that they perpetuated some of those stereotypes and pushing any time that they could find anything that was closely similar when they would report it in their books and things like that. They would just twist it just a hair to fit that same narrative because it would fit that narrative. And the same goes with they say that, science fiction television is the same thing, that all of a sudden, there's a claim out there that the alien that Betty describes looks exactly like an alien from an episode of Outer Limits that aired that same week, that aired a few days before, and they more than likely would have watched that show because it was a very popular show. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's also one of those things where as time goes on, the average person, right, your memory starts to change. You start to, like you were saying, Santosh, you start to appropriate things that are discussed or topics or whatever, and next thing you know, that becomes part of your memory structure for the events that happened. And also, really, not to bring it back too far around, but our friend, not really a friend, but the person we know, Dr. Stephen Greer, if you listen to his account is that all abductions are military abductions.
Yeah.
So, he says the beings that are out there would never do such a thing. Then if you listen to Bashar, it was done because they have no emotions and they didn't understand that they were causing problems. So
if you do it via Woody Derenberger, they were just humanoids. They were pink and they're just stealing stuff because that's their culture.
That's their culture. Yep. That's what happened to all those missing 411 people.
Yep. But yeah, thanks, Josh, for all of that, man. That's the Betty and Barney Hill case in a quick wrapped up bubble. We could talk about this for days. And there's a lot. Again, I've mentioned this before, but Strange Arrivals, highly skeptical podcast, but he covers it in a great deal in the first or second season. I can't remember. But it's really, really interesting. I learned quite a bit from him, even coming from a debunker. It was still very, very interesting. And there's an episode of Project Blue Book that covers it as well. So, but let's go ahead and move on and get out of here. All right. Thank you, Santosh, for coming on the show. JD is just literally sitting there in Zen mode. He's so happy to see you.
It is reciprocated even.
But I know you got some psychic sleep stuff going on. If you wanted to share a little bit of information on that for our listeners, that they can kind of take part in that. We've shared it quite a bit, but where can they find info on that?
Heck yeah, and they should also be on the lookout because Josh and I are collaborating on a guided meditation to to help with one's astral projection shenanigans. But what's going on right now? Psychic Sleep runs Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's about an hour and a half long guided meditation. Various benefits. You can look at all that on the website, santosdavid.com, which can also, if you want to test out the waters before coming to the live session, you can buy one of those recordings,
which we highly recommend. They are excellent. Santosh, I got to give you credit where credit is deserved.
Thank you both.
It is really, really good. You can also go to fearscapemedia.com. We'll have a link there, like we said, to Santosh's stuff, as well as all of our stuff, all the other cool stuff that's there, for t-shirts and the like,
mugs, t-shirts,
mugs, all that stuff. It's a really good. And of course, you can go to the UnX Network's website as well, find out all that stuff. And follow everybody on social media, because that's what we do, people. We follow each other.
Follow.
Like stalkers. Like stalkers.
Follow the Yellow Brick Road.
But yeah, we've got some fun episodes, like we said, coming up this month. We're going to be talking about Pascagoula, some contactees, and some other stuff. Really, really excited. Alien Abduction April. My baby should be here by now. I'm really, really excited. We've pre-recorded this, so I haven't had a baby yet, but I'm really, really excited about being a daddy. And my kid is going to be inundated with all the alien stuff. And when she's old enough, Josh, I'm taking her to the MUFON Symposium with us.
Yeah. Probably like 12 or 13, because if not, you'll just hear, I'm bored. I'm bored.
That's your kids, not mine. Because my kid is going to be hanging out with Uncle Santosh, and we are going to be imagining ourselves. We know how to use our imaginations, people. I teach improv here. But yeah, also don't forget, you can check out all of our past episodes, whether it be from the Convergence Enigma or even back in the day when it was Fearscape Paranormal Podcast. You can find that at theconvergenceenigma.com. Check out Josh and I's side little project that we do for the Debrief, which is a fantastic news organization that covers science, tech, and UFOs and all that stuff, is Tech Talk, where we talk about techie stuff, because we're nerds and we love UFOs and ghosts and all that stuff, but we also love technology because we feel like that's a part of the Convergence Enigma as well.
That's right.
But yeah, just go to youtube.com/debrief media, I believe, or just search Debrief Tech Talk into YouTube and find Tech Talk, because it's a lot of freaking fun. And Astral Stew, I gotta throw out Astral Stew while we're here. That's the three of us. That's our YouTube show and podcast called Astral Stew. The podcast is available. It's out now on fearscapemedia.com/Astral Stew. You can find it there, as well as the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Fearscape Media. Check that out. That's the three of us. You can see our beautiful faces and all that stuff. But let's go ahead and get out of here. And Santosh, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do your byline. So this has been Stefan. And just a reminder, keep your eyes on the skies.
This has been Josh. The truth is now.
This has been Santosh. And I still don't have a byline.
Well, I hate you. But just remember, folks, keep searching and keep questioning. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.